Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and general public. You're welcome to this session. I have here with me Ugochi Obidiegu, and we popularly call her the safety chick, and Belinda Odeneye, the permanent secretary for the Lagos State Safety Commission. Today, we're going to be discussing safety in education. And we're starting first with Belinda Odeneye. She sent in a presentation. I'm going to be taking some questions from that presentation. In your definition of safety education, you talked about acquisition of knowledge, safety knowledge, skills, and etc., which children should have in order to stay safe given the situation and under some demanding circumstances. Can you explain further on what this entails and how best this can be achieved?
Thank you very much. Children are our future, and we know that if we teach them right, we'll get it right, they will have a mindset change. So basically, what education in safety means to children is that they will understand hazard identification, risk assessment. They will be able to know what to do in terms of issue practically, because we've had children who are being trained, they're able to save parents, homes, schools, and all that in terms of lockdown and all that. So risk assessment is key, hazard identification is key, teaching the children how to even do lockdown in terms of fire, telling them which is heavier, the air or the smoke. What do they need to do? Stop, drop, and roll. Those are the fingertips training we believe children should have in safety education. So basically, in the Ministry of Special Duties, under which school safety was a key issue and is still a key issue in Lagos State Safety Commission, we had what we call commandments that we break down so that children will understand basic issues. So the children were taught how to, what a safety policy is, playground safety, what are the issues in the playground safety, because we had issues with people going to the swing and falling off because the concrete under the swing was not properly done. So children were taught how to identify hazards in various areas, and that transportation safety was also a very wonderful topic that came up very smartly, and we thought that that should be in the education of children. We found children being taken to school from their homes in buses where the driver isn't trained and they don't have like a banksman, and we've had accidents. So children were really taught how to make sure that the engine goes off when they stop in front of their house before the door is opened, and then that everything they need in the bus is picked up and they are crossed into their homes before the engine roars again. So we had like a checklist, compliance list, where which we monitor the schools, especially the school bus. So we found children, you know how they are. We say, Auntie, use your seatbelt. You know, once children are taught and their mindset is changed, it goes a very long way. So we're still doing it as we speak. In the 6 districts of education in Lagos State, we have safety champions. We've chosen teachers who they either teach science, geography, and they've been trained, they have a flair for safety. So they've been trained in hazard identification, risk assessment, what you need to do, you know, basically. So, and it's still ongoing.
Okay, thank you very much. So now I want to go to you, safety chick. You've had several experiences propagating safety education amongst children, amongst teenagers, and the likes. Would you say it's a moral issue, a social issue? How would you view it? And how would you think the best approach should be?
Thank you so much for inviting me to this panel. I really appreciate the opportunity to share on this platform. So, to your question, I think it's a combination of things because, in my experience, first of all, initially, I just wanted to share knowledge with the non safety professional, the everyday businessman who probably wasn't working in oil and gas, construction, or aviation. But the other ones thought, okay, no, 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 we don't need safety. It's people in those other sectors that need safety. And that's when I saw that it was a deeper problem. It was a deeper societal problem because in our upbringing, we didn't really have any systematic way of learning about safety. If you would notice, those who knew some way to be safety conscious, maybe their parents worked in any of those industries I had mentioned. And so it was passed down to them somehow. But even it being passed down to them was informal. And that was what made me to start that Train Them Young initiative to visit schools because I believe that if we're able to solve it from the roots, these children are going to grow into adults who are safety conscious. And so when they find themselves in the work environment, it's easier to comply with safety rules as opposed to maybe they're already adults, full-blown adults, and then you're asking them to change something they have done all their lives. It's almost akin to, you maybe, for example, you're right-handed and you've used your right hand to eat all your life. And then someday you show up at work and they say you've been doing it wrong. You've got to start using the left. And well, if somebody is monitoring you, you would use the left. But if nobody is there, you revert to the right because you've been wired to do things a certain way. And so that's why I believe that safety education should be intentional and systematic. And that's why I really appreciate one of the things Mrs. Odeneye has said today, which is the importance of integrating it into the curriculum. Now, if we are able to teach our children maths and English every day when they show up in school, how about we have safety education integrated that way? So, sometime in 2019, I did a pilot test in the city of Abuja, where my child safety storybook series, The Adventures of Mona, this is the French version, but the English version, we shared it to some select schools and we asked them to use it for an academic term at the rate of one chapter per week. And then we gauge knowledge levels at the beginning and at the end. What we discovered was that knowledge levels of the children increased, and even the teachers themselves learned in the process. So you can see that it's not enough for us to just maybe just do a campaign where you go to school, teach the children today and you're out. It has to be integrated across the entire value chain. So when they are in the primary school, it should be taught at their level because again, the subject, the complexity of the subject must be suitable to the age of the child who is listening to it. So, for example, when I go to primary schools to have my safety campaigns, I just need to whip out my child safety storybook. I read it to them. We all laugh because they can relate to the stories. Many of those children have tried the things in the story so they can understand. But when I go to a secondary school, I have a PowerPoint presentation that teaches things at a little bit higher level than the safety storybook because the age of the children in that case, and their understanding is at a different level. And to some extent, there are things those ones can do that the smaller children would not do. So maybe there might be some things we might tell the smaller children that if this happens around you, your job is to run and look for an adult to come and sort it out. But depending on the age of teenager in secondary school you might be dealing with, you might say you are old enough to handle it, so do so, so, and so. So you can see that depending on the age of the child, the complexity of the topic would vary. But I would also like to emphasize the importance of simplifying safety knowledge, making it interesting. Because one of the things that made people resonate with the Safety Chick platform when we started years ago is the fact that we're able to simplify complex safety topics in a way that the everyday man can understand. They don't need safety jargons, in all honesty, because I mean, they're not about to start doing your career. So our job is to simplify it. So for us at the Safety Chick Limited, what we've done is storybooks. Last year, when children were about to return to school in a pandemic, we created an online safety game, just so that children are playing, right? But even in play, they're learning what is critical. And what happens is when these children find themselves in emergency situations, they can act because that knowledge will bubble to the top of their minds. And that is really what we want. We want to ingrain that safety consciousness from scratch. So it's a combination of factors. I wouldn't just say it's moral or it's social. It's a combination of factors.
Okay, thank you very much for the response. I come back to you, Mrs. Odeneye. Um, you drawing from your vast experience in government cycles,
Yeah.
you said in your presentation, you alluded that government is primarily the biggest stakeholder in driving safety education in the society. Would you say that government has received enough support or buy-in from other stakeholders? And if that is not the case, what will the government do to get these stakeholders on board?
Well, um, Safety Commission is just one in Nigeria. So I give kudos to the government of Lagos State being so proactive and seeing the need, because Lagos State is not just a mega city, cosmopolitan city. It has over 22 million people coming. Every tribe is in Lagos, and we also have a wonderful geography that shows that we're surrounded by water, and then there are so many issues of safety. So basically, we've been able to liaise with. We found out that safety cuts across all the MDAs. So what we've done, there is no MDA in Lagos State that Safety Commission is not related to. We actually went there, going to intimate them of what Safety Commission is doing and how we need them. For example, Lagos State Waterways Agency, we do what we call safe boating, because there are quite a number of people who go on the waterways to get to their various destinations. They will not put on their safety gadgets, like putting on the floater. They would, they would just like, oh, I've been doing it for ages, so I won't fall. They can't swim. So we actually took it to them. We'll go to the jetties, do a program around about it, sing songs, actually take people, after telling them about what to do, we now enforce. When we get to a place, you see someone who says, oh, it's because I'm fat and big and the floater can't fit me, that's why I'm not wearing it. We put them aside and tell them why their life is important and why the government loves them and does not want them to die. And then there are a lot of both issues that have happened that we now know that we needed to pay more attention. Also, even on the route of the boats, because of some relics of old metals in the waterways, we've asked that they be dredged by the inland waterways, and such actions that are positive has happened. Let me go on to the collapse building area, physical planning, environment, education itself is in a curriculum in terms of clubbing, extracurricular activities, books, and all that. So we have the likes of um, um, our sister who wrote the Mona books. We take it to schools and make sure that the children flow with the story, and so that they can see themselves as a person who has something to do about the safety of their own lives as well. There is no MDA in Lagos State that we have not linked up with. We are also linking up with the federal government, the Ministry of Labor and Productivity. We have a department there that is basically on labor issues and how the people should be cared for at work. So workplace safety is very key. So basically, we're still even engaging with other MDAs because safety is key. We've entrenched safety so much so that any event that the Lagos State government is doing, there's a safety moment that is played out, even if it's a party, even if it's Christmas party. If this is where the toilet is, these are the exits, these are the openings, take care in this area. The safety audit of this place has been done. These are the actions that we've taken to ameliorate and alleviate the issues on ground. However, you are safe to this degree. If you are pressed for toilet, these are the places to go. There is a sound for fire alarm. This is the muster point. So that's a routine. Even if we go to hotels, the safety commission officials will go there and first do what we call safety audit and give a report. And then the report will be played out in a video form so that everyone at the event is listening and is taking notes. for their own personal safety. So that's as far as we've gone, and we're still engaging. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for the explanation. Ugochi, in your experience so far, you mentioned that you've had to deal with teenagers, those in secondary school, in those in primary school as well. What would you say is the appropriate age to start passing the message of safety to the children?
Okay, so thank you so much for that question. I would say as early as possible. What you are just checking is based on the age of the child, you're making it as simple as possible. So, for example, the ones who are really small at the early childhood education level, it might just be coloring activities and puzzles. So, there is something we have in my child safety storybook series. At the end of each chapter, we have questions. Then, at the end of the book, we have puzzles and we have a coloring activity. Okay, so this is just perfect. So here is a coloring activity. Now, at the beginning, they would see the picture of the character, and then they now get to color to their heart's content. Then there is also let me see if I can find the puzzle. Aha, yes. So here now, this is like let me bring it this way, like a puzzle. So you're saying this, there is a fire, there is, this is in a, these children are in a smoke filled building. Color how they are going to escape, the escape pathway from here to the gate. So you can see that for such a child now, they'll be having fun with their crayons and all that, right? But they're getting the message. So the
Yeah.
age of the child determines how, but you can't say the baby is too small. They are not too small. Children actually pick up things. In fact, what made me to start using stories was when I started visiting schools and summer camps to teach the children. I had a curriculum I used to teach them. Then I noticed that when I would use an example of something that had happened maybe in another location or in another country, that's a real life story, it got their attention. So, for example, there was a story that trended in the US of a 5-year-old who had saved her blind grandmother from a smoke filled building. And when she was interviewed later, she said it was because her school had gone on an excursion to a fire station and they had taught them when you're in a smoke filled building, go down low and crawl out. Now, that is a 5-year-old. So it might have seemed like just something so simple, but she got the message. And when it was time to act, she acted. So I would say no child is too small. Just ensure that you bring it down to their level and teach them. When it's time, trust me, those children would act.
Okay. Okay. Finally, Mrs. Odene, I want to come back to you again. You mentioned something about 10 safety commandments deployed by the uh, government agency. How were they deployed and how effective have they been?
Okay, so anytime we talk about education, we always like to put some fun around it so that children will be able to hold on to the details. So what we've done is we got consultants who are well versed in the area of safety in education sector when we started the school safety issue. And it's interesting to let you know that sometimes it's events that push you on to start some things. There was a time that some children, especially the brother and sister, were taken to their home, and then the driver dropped them, and then the younger one wanted to pick a bottle, and the boss went over the child and killed her. So those were safety issues that led to all kinds of investigation and led to the school safety general rules. And also those general rules are the 10 commandments, kind of, that there should be safety policy in place, talking about playground safety, transport safety, talking about food and hygiene, inoculation, first aid, and all that, even the structure of the places where the schools are. So there should not be a death trap. So it was worked out by a very wonderful consultant, and then taken over. He was paid for his services, taken over by the ministry and the commission. After that, we've reviewed it. You know, we're in a dynamic setting. We've reviewed it because there were some things like what we call Legionella disease that we saw that was coming up, and people didn't know about it because of the way they put their tanks, and it's growing all kinds of growth around it, and then the water is infected and people are having Legionella disease and all that. So in the newer one, we have an update of current emerging issues coming up. And I know that if I find out now, they're in the process of also updating that second edition. So we have various, we know safety is about procedures and policies and all. So we have various domain of safety with their different areas, and then the different areas where they need to pay attention to, so that we'll call on people, because at the end of the day, we want to make safety a lifestyle and a culture. It's not just hearing it and all that. It's putting it in mind and using it and making sure that at the end of the day, we are saving lives. So it's a life that understands what to do in when issue arises that will be saved. For example, another thing that happened in the area of child safety, and on the 16th of December 2016, a child safety protection policy came up, so that we'll be using in school. Some wonderful couple took their son to creche. The child is like a year plus, and I started eating solid, and they gave the child beans and said, oh, he's had one meal in the house. The parents work like in the bank. They dropped him off about 6:37. You won't believe that when the auntie was feeding the child, maybe he didn't just want the beans or something. He just, choked on it, and then it went into the airways. And then it's just a very simple procedure to hit the bean out of the wrong track by just using the heel of your hand and doing it at the back, middle of the back, and dislodging the bean. But they did not know what to do. They put the baby on the back and were running to the hospital. By the time they got to the hospital said BID, brought in dead, because the passage was already blocked for over 5 minutes. It just takes about 5 minutes. So when that happened, it's like, wow, just a simple procedure of first aid. If it's an adult, you just do the abdominal thrust in the front, and for a baby, you do the back. So we just felt, oh, creches and aunties and nannies also need to be trained. So we also found, we are blessed in Nigeria with all kinds of people that are very, very trained in different areas. One of these consultants too was going around to train nannies on what they need to do with babies, what are the issues with babies in creches. So safety of life and property, very key. Child safety and the education of same, very, very key. We train the teachers, we train the nannies in the creches, so that we save the lives of our children. No parent is happy to take a child to school and then they call the parents and say the child is no more. It's not a joy. It's not something to be celebrated. So in keeping the lives of many, we feel that the change of attitude, the change of mindset, inculcating right training is the key and the way forward in saving lives. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that explanation again. So, Ugochi, back to you finally. So what's your advice, Ugochi, drawing from your vast experience on the best way to drive home safety education across board?
Okay, so
Your
thank you so much
final word, please.
thank you so much for that. I'll say a number of things. The first thing is multi-stakeholder engagement. It's really critical so that somehow the children are in the loop. So from the school to the places of worship to our mass media, that's radio, TV, music industry, movies, safety education must be integrated across. Now, the reason is if, for example, they are in a school where maybe it's not taught, because the truth is, for many schools I went to, I was the first person they were hearing about safety from. And so that means that safety education has not really penetrated. So it might be in the curriculum, but maybe it's not, it hasn't cascaded down to the grassroots. It hasn't gotten to some schools yet. So if they're not getting it in their schools, which they should be getting, but if they are not getting it in their schools, they should be getting it from other places. Now, we are in a part of the world, Africa, where people believe what comes to them from their men of God, the preachers. So then we must still use those same men of God to pass on this information. So places of worship must integrate it into what is being mentioned in the places of worship. Our music videos, our movies should integrate it. It shouldn't be that there is a scene in a movie where someone is dying and nobody thought to do CPR. Nobody thought to call an emergency number. Those are things that should be done. I mean, the first few times I would go to schools in Nigeria and I'd ask them, what is the emergency number? They would say 911. Why? They have watched a lot of things where they have heard 911. What if that was reversed and in our movies, everybody knows to call 112 because that is a national number. Lagos is 767, but 112 has been integrated to cover the entire country. So what if it is that integrated that everybody knows, oh, I can call 112, and it is part of the scripts in movies. So you can see that systematically would be ingrained it into the psychology of the society. Then I would also say that developers, safety organizations should work with, people like me. Let's create fun and interesting, diverse safety education products, because it's not enough to teach safety in school. We must ensure that even outside school, children are experiencing it, most especially today where children are given lots of devices to entertain themselves. We must ensure that they might be entertaining themselves, but they are learning in the process. So please come, let's work together. Let's create cartoons, let's create games, let's create all those sorts of stuff. Then the next one I would say is government, education agencies, and curriculum strategies. We must work together to systematically introduce safety across board. So Lagos is doing a fantastic job. We can do better, but the entire country, the entire continent. So I'm always happy to have conversations with our friends from other African countries who reach out to me to say, how can we work together to put safety education in our schools? Because the truth is, it has to spread across the entire continent. The way we have maths and English taught almost Monday to Friday, we should have an aspect of safety taught every day. It's a build-up. It's just the way we say little drops of water make an ocean. We keep dropping it every day. It doesn't have to take 30 minutes. It could be 10 minutes every day. Over time, we are doing something critical, and our children are going to thank us for it in future. So that's what it is for me. First thing, multi-stakeholder engagement. It should be across the different facets of society, not just only in schools. The second thing is that organizations should work on using new and interesting methods to provide this knowledge, not just within the school system, but also outside. And then, of course, that systematic curriculum where it cascades across the entire state, across the entire country, and across the entire continent.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure you didn't have any issues with mathematics and English.
I did. Correctly. So myself and Matt, we are not very good friends. So the maths that I know, I did it because I knew I had to pass, because I'm an excellent person, right? I like to pass. But guess what? Now, coming back to school, quantitative is really important. So I'm currently using certain gaming platforms. You can imagine I'm an adult, but I'm using gaming platforms to learn maths because they teach it in an interesting way. Even I, that I'm not a maths person, I'm getting it. So how much more safety, which is, what people think is complex, if we gamify it, make it interesting, everybody will get it.
Okay, so finally, Mrs. Odene, your final word on this safety education, the best approach.
Okay. Basically, safety is key, and we normally use that cliche, safety na koko, that all of us need to be safe and alive, and the value of life is key. We should not take our lives for granted. I always remember the 33 Chilean miners that fell under, and they were brought out by a wonderful leader in the country. And while they were under, they had opportunity of watching TV. They were passing water to them. It took them a lot of days to bring them out, but they were assuring them, we're going this angular drilling so that we'll get to you, so that it won't collapse on you and we'll lose you. So to them, that means the world. They came out alive. If we just said, oh, they're just 33 and we're like 23 million, it doesn't matter. And they just allowed them, they just did a shoddy job, and then they say, we're sorry. But I'm sure they spent so much money in trying to save those 33. So alive and well today, those 33 will do what wonders for that country, because they feel that, oh, we're needed, our life is important to this government, and They've done so much for us. So whatever it is they're doing, so life is very important. Whatever we're doing about preserving lives, doing things right is very key. We should keep talking about it, educating, changing mindset, so that life is good. We'll continue to live good lives and impact our generation for good. Our life is very key. So being alive and the potentials inside of us is much. And we need to bring out those potentials. And it is only when we're alive that we can. They always say that there are a lot of potentials in the graveside, but they cannot be used again. So it's when you're alive that you can contribute what is inside of you to make your nation better. Nigeria needs us, and there's a lot inside of us that can make Nigeria better. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been wonderful having Ugochi Obidie, safety chick, and Belinda Odene, I will say safety mama, in the house. Thank you very much. I'm sure the next time we call on you, you will oblige us. We appreciate you. Thank you once again, and do have a good day. Okay, what an interesting session we've had so far today. It seems it's going to be you and I, Ugochi. Safety Mama is unavoidably absent now. I think it's our network issues. But a quick one. There have been some questions in the chat room, and I'm going to be taking them one after the other. Thankfully, they are non-mathematics questions, so you can be at rest. Okay, so the first one we have is from Akinwale Omoni. He said, how do we ensure all schools, like other organizations, have a detailed risk assessment, and how do we ensure they are robust enough? So 2 questions in one.
Okay, so thank you so much for that question. So the first thing is how do we ensure that they have the risk assessment? So this is it, right? Before anybody starts a school, they're actually supposed to go to the Ministry of Education to get the requirements for starting a school. You don't just wake up and then you start a school. Even if that is what you did, you should eventually get up and go to the Ministry of Education to find out the requirement, because there is a requirement. Now, when you go there to find the requirement, if it is here in Lagos, you would also get information from the Lagos State Commission on the things that you are expected to do, and that would include risk assessment, the things that would need to be in your school to ensure that children in your care are safe. Now, because this is a West African conference, right? We're hoping that even other Africans across the continent get to hear this. Whether you have a safety commission in your state or country or not, the Ministry of Education should have it as part of the requirements that schools must have. Because if someone who is just interested in improving the situation in the education space comes to you, they do not know much. They know to a level. Now you, the regulator, you know more than they do. So you give them that guideline. And then with that guideline, they can go to start implementing what you have asked them to do. And then they might, in their own way, they might get safety professionals to check they are ready before the regulator comes to check that they've actually done what they're supposed to do. So first things first, the relevant agency should help them by providing the guideline, the tool, so that they even know what they are supposed to do. And then the next and more important thing is, it's not enough to have given them what to do. Monitoring and compliance is critical. So somebody needs to go and check that what you have asked them to do, they have done it. And it's not enough to just check at the beginning. You have to go and check periodically, so that if they're doing something well, you encourage them to do better. If they're not even doing that thing well at all, then of course you let them know. There are various tools that safety professionals use to ensure that people do what they're supposed to do. So yes, from the beginning, that robust risk assessment guideline should be available and handed as a tool that these school owners or prospective educators can use to set up the system, and then monitoring and compliance to ensure that they do the right thing.
Okay, thank you very much for the response. There's a follow-up question here. It says from Darlington, when can we incorporate safety in our school curriculum? I mean, this would have been very good for government officials, but as a stakeholder, what's your response to this?
So I would say as soon as possible. Now, the reason I'm saying that is I know that there are some countries who have integrated some form of safety education already in their curriculum, but then there are those who have not, because maybe they didn't really see the importance yet. Sometimes it's not as if people do not want to do things. It's just that nobody has really sold the benefit. Nobody has really sold the importance to them yet. And sometimes all you need to do is open their eyes to see the implications, and then they do what they're supposed to do. So if you do not have it in your country, it's important that that conversation begins to happen. Let the safety association in that country come together as a group, as a pressure group or something. Move to the relevant agency in your country and begin to have that conversation. These things take a while, but what is really important is to begin to take incremental steps. Now, if you're here in Nigeria, where we actually have some parts of safety in the curriculum, the only challenge I have seen so far is that it hasn't cascaded down, because we do actually have information on disaster response integrated in the curriculum, but it hasn't really cascaded down. And that's actually what we need. So it's not enough to have it in the curriculum, but we must put systems in place to ensure that that goes down. Because if it is there written in one book somewhere, in one document somewhere, and then the child in one school in a local government far away has not even heard about it, then there is a disconnect, and we must bridge that gap. So I would say the answer to that is as soon as possible. If you already have it, work on cascading it down to every school across the entire country. If you do not have it, safety professionals in that country, please, I beg of you, work with the relevant stakeholders and begin to do something about it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Okay, there's another question from Tajuddin Bakari. It would have been good if Mama Safety or Safety Mama were around as well, but can still speak to it. He said, can those in government tell us the collaboration between Ministry of Labor and Education Ministry on how there can be preliminary safety course for teachers so that this can be inculcated into the children they are teaching?
Okay, so like you rightfully said, this is a question for a government official. So all I would just say is, I always believe in a multi-stakeholder approach, and that's what this question is also beginning to address. You can't stay on your own end and want to do it all. We need the buy-in of several stakeholders, because when we get the buy-in, everybody begins to take ownership. They see the role that they play. And so, yes, it's really important that should I say, a specific curriculum is developed in that regard, so that teachers across the entire country can be learning the same thing. And it is totally doable. The reason I can say that is because when we wanted to resume school after the lockdown, I knew that Lagos State government did something. We had a curriculum that we used to have sessions with teachers across different areas, different public school teachers and proprietors, and the leadership, basically, both the leadership and teachers. And that training happened across different local governments here in Lagos. So if we could develop a curriculum that was preparing them for managing coronavirus in a school setting, how much more the entire safety context? So it is totally possible. So I would just say that, yes, a multi-stakeholder approach is important, and yes, it is possible, because before we went back to school during the pandemic, something like that was done here in Lagos, and so it can be done across the country and in other countries too.
Okay, so I had this question that beyond the formal educational settings, how about churches, mosques, and etc.? And then Nkechi asked a very similar question. Apart from driving safety in schools from the government, how can we drive safety in schools as parents, clients to these schools?
Okay, so that's a very fantastic
question. What's your take on this?
Yes, that's a very fantastic question, Nkechi, and that's because each and every one of us must take ownership. If you are a safety professional here, you live there's a school around you, whether it is close to your workplace or whether it's close to your home or whether it's close to your place of worship. What you can do is go and visit them. Go and visit them, ask them questions, look around. And when you see that things are not as they should, based on your knowledge as a safety professional, then you do something about it. I've seen safety professionals who took it upon themselves to set up the safety arm in their places of worship. It wasn't a paid job, but because they know that this is important, this is critical. And so, yes, I know that, many times we want to make money from the work that we do. But if you already have a job that is
Yeah.
paying you, right, this can be your own way of contributing to society. This can be your own way of making an impact, because the truth is we need all hands on deck. There are just a few people, but so many more can be doing it. And if everybody's doing it in their own little way, just imagine the ripple effect. Just imagine if everyone here in this conference today takes it upon themselves to do something in a school in their neighborhood, to have a session in maybe their residential estate association, or even in their place of worship. Imagine what that can do. So it's really important that we don't just leave, we're not confining it only to school. Try to make it to penetrate other places. I know places of worship who, on a periodical basis, they invite safety professionals to come and train their church members or their mosque members on an aspect of safety. So it's totally possible, but it begins with you and I going that extra mile and saying, how can I help you? This is not right. This is how it's supposed to be done. Let's work together, and then it would happen. Back to you, David. Okay, so back to you, David. Can you still hear me?
Okay. Thank you so very. Okay, thank you so very much, Safety Chick Gochi, for the elaborate explanation. We're running short of time, so but it's been a very wonderful session. I must say thank you again for the responses. Even though you were a lone ranger today, it's very interesting and very beautiful responses from you. We wouldn't have expected anything less. Thank you so much. The chat room has been buzzing with a lot of questions, but unfortunately, we won't be able to take more at this time. It has been a wonderful session from me to everyone out there. Thank you so very much. And Ugochi, a last word from you.
Each and every one must be intentional about grooming a safety conscious generation. And that begins with you and I. The things you know about safety, how about you begin to simplify it such that the children in your care, the adults in your care know about it and can also share it to other people within their spheres of influence. So it's up to you and I. Please, let's keep on ensuring that more people know how to stay safe in different situations. Thank you once again to the organizers of the IOSH West African Conference for inviting me to share my thoughts on this very, very important topic. Back to you, David.
Okay, thank you so very much. Once again, everyone, thank you for being so attentive and participating. Thank you also to IOSH. We'll say au revoir. Thank you. Bye bye. Odabo. Say Kandochi. And in Igbo, how do you say it, Ugochi?
Oh, God. Don't put me on the spot, please.
Okay, anyway, bye bye.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.